The heavy, jasmine-scented air of Beauchain Manor never felt so suffocating. I never thought everything Alastair had done to me would one day bring me to this precipice, but life has a way of cornering you in the humid stillness of unexpected moments. And that night, the night when propriety dissolved like sugar in chicory coffee, when logic fell silent under the drone of cicadas, and the tempest inside me finally broke, I felt utterly trapped. I was perched on the edge of the antique four-poster bed, its dark wood looming in the shadows, staring at the stark, unforgiving light of my phone screen. My fingers trembled, leaving damp prints on the glass. My eyes were locked on it, refusing, denying what they saw. Alastair's messages. The photos, tagged by the boutique hotel in New Orleans. Him and her, arm in arm through a gaslit courtyard lobby. That smile creasing his handsome face, the one reserved for conquests, the one I hadn't seen directed my way in what felt like a lifetime. My stomach plummeted, a sickening drop through the humid air. My hands, despite the oppressive Louisiana heat, felt like ice. Fury coiled tight in my gut, sharp and bitter, tangled with a disappointment so profound it ached in my bones. And worst of all, the crushing weight of helplessness. I was 36, Ilara, mistress of Beauchain Manor. His first wife, I'd foolishly believed when he spun his honeyed words under the moss-draped oaks. But to Alastair, 45 and steeped in old money and older betrayals, I was merely the third woman. 3 marriages, countless whispered scandals staining the legacy of this house. And now he'd done it to me too. Alastair would never comprehend the edge he'd pushed me to tonight. I didn't deserve this hollow existence in his grand, echoing house, and I wasn't going to stifle myself anymore. Tonight was that night. Throughout this charade of a marriage, Alastair had treated me like another acquisition, beautiful but ultimately disposable. In the beginning, it was intoxicating. He was attentive, gallant, making me feel like the queen of his humid kingdom. But the last couple of years, a chilling distance had settled between us, palpable as the damp that sometimes crept up the manor walls. He'd become a ghost in his own home, cold, remote. And now, there he was, tangible and vibrant with another woman, laughing in a luxury hotel as if I, Ilara, waiting in the stifling silence of Beauchain, had evaporated like morning mist off the bayou. A deep, shuddering breath filled my lungs, thick with the scent of decay and honeysuckle. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here, sinking into the plush velvet of this antique prison, drowning in this swamp of despair. Suddenly, decisively, I stood. My bare feet padded silently across the cool, wide plank floorboards of the upstairs landing. The hallway stretched before me, vast and dark, punctuated by the faint, flickering glow of a replica gas lamp nightlight near the grand staircase. My feet, guided by an instinct deeper than thought, knew the path. My mind lagged, refusing to fully process the destination. I was going to Rhys's room, Alastair's son, from his first marriage, the one that ended before my time. Rhys, 23, sculpted and restless, home from Tulane for the summer. Since Alastair had departed on his latest business trip, it had just been the two of us rattling around in the echoing vastness of Beauchain Manor. But the air between us was thick with more than just summer humidity. We hadn't truly spoken in days. Not since that night. That night, something had shifted. We'd collided in the cavernous, dimly lit kitchen, seeking refuge from the oppressive silence of the house. A bottle of bourbon sat between us on the cool marble countertop. We were just talking, the shared weight of Alastair's absence a tangible presence. Neither of us voiced the resentment, the loneliness, but it hung there, heavy as the Spanish moss outside. And then it happened. Rhys had looked at me, really looked at me. His usual guarded gaze softened, but beneath it, a current sparked. Intense, raw, something I'd never dared acknowledge before. And God help me, I leaned into it, without calculation, without censoring the flicker of response. We kissed, a brief, electric collision under the weak glow of the under-cabinet lights. Just seconds later, the reality crashed down. We both recoiled as if burned. "This is wrong, Reese," I'd whispered, my voice tight. He'd stepped back further, his breathing hitched. Yeah, he'd breathed out, the single word heavy with unspoken complexities. Since then, a careful, awkward distance, avoided glances across the long dining table, murmured pleasantries that felt like brittle glass. But now, tonight, with Alastair's casual cruelty ripping through the last vestiges of my restraint, with the loneliness of this huge, haunted house pressing in on me, boundaries felt like flimsy lace, easily torn. I took another deep, steadying breath, the scent of old wood and river water filling my nostrils. My hand closed around the cool brass doorknob. I turned it and pushed the heavy door open. Reese was sprawled on his bed, staring up at the high water-stained ceiling, earbuds nestled in his ears. Lamplight from the bedside table cast long shadows across his bare chest and the sharp planes of his face. When I stepped over the threshold, his head lifted slightly. His eyes, dark and mirroring Alastair's in color but not in coldness, found mine in the dimness. For a beat, his expression froze. Surprise warring with something else. Recognition? Expectancy? Ilera. His voice was low, husky with sleep, but underscored with caution. Words failed me. I simply stepped fully into the room, the click of the heavy door closing behind me echoing in the sudden, charged silence. Our eyes met across the space, held, and in that charged stillness, everything, the betrayal, the loneliness, the forbidden spark from the kitchen, came rushing back, potent and undeniable. My breath hitched, shallow and unsteady in my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The phone felt heavy, damning, in my still trembling hand. I could barely focus on the illuminated screen, the image of Alastair's laughing face blurring through the unshed tears burning my eyes. Finally, I forced my gaze up to meet Reese's. I was looking at the hotel's Instagram. I managed, my voice rough, scraped raw by the tangle of fury, heartbreak, and sheer, soul-crushing frustration churning inside me. There's stories, and here it is. The photo. Proof. I held the phone out, an offering of my pain. Reese pushed himself up, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. He wore only low-slung sleep pants, the waistband disappearing beneath the defined lines of his stomach. The lamplight sculpted the muscles of his arms and shoulders, honed by rowing on the bayou perhaps. His dark hair was tousled, slightly damp, clinging to his temples. He must have showered before turning in. His expression hardened as he took the phone, his jaw tightening. A familiar mask mirroring the deep-seated resentment I knew he harbored for Alastair. He scanned the screen, his eyes narrowing at the image. Alastair, radiating smug charm, basking in the glow of the expensive hotel lobby with her. That practiced gleam in his, I remembered it directed at me, once under these very cypress trees. A lifetime ago. Now I knew its cheap, fleeting nature. Reese let out a slow breath, the sound loud in the quiet room. He looked up, his gaze meeting mine, intense and direct. Ilera. His voice was deeper now, softer, yet resonant. I know exactly how you feel. His eyes held mine, unwavering. But I need you to hear this. I stopped giving a damn about Alastair's opinion a long, long time ago. And you should never feel like some footnote, some third wife because of him. I wanted to respond, to argue, to crumble, but the words lodged in my throat, choked by the thickness of my emotions. Reese glanced back at the phone, a frown twisting his lips as he shook his head with disdain. He's got the looks, the money, the smooth talk. People swallow it whole. But underneath, he scoffed, a bitter sound. He's empty, Ilara. Worthless. Nobody knows that better than I do. I averted my gaze, wrapping my arms around myself, a futile attempt to contain the tremors racking my body. Each word Reese spoke landed, sinking deep into the fertile ground of my hurt. But what struck me most wasn't just the venom for his father. It was the conviction. I believed him. He moved closer, standing now, the space between us shrinking, charged with unspoken energy. The heat radiating from his bare skin seemed to warm the air. "You are not unimportant," he stated, his voice dropping lower, steadier, commanding my attention. His eyes locked with mine again, refusing to let me hide. "You're beautiful, Ilara. You're smart, you're kind." He hesitated on the last word, as if discovering it himself. "Ilara." My breath caught. His words were a bomb, directly countering the years of subtle undermining, the seeds of insecurity Alastair had so carefully planted. They fought against the fragility that gripped me, the hollowness of abandonment, the aching certainty that I was unwanted. Reese's voice, his presence, was an anchor in the storm. For a long moment, I just looked at him. The dim lamplight sculpted his features, the strong line of his jaw, the tousled dark hair falling over his forehead, and those eyes. Alastair's eyes always held a calculation, a self-serving glint. Reese's held only a raw, unwavering truth. My arms fell limply to my sides. The fury inside me hadn't vanished, but something else was igniting alongside it, a slow, dangerous burn that had nothing to do with anger. Reese lowered his head slightly, his gaze tracing the contours of my face. "We haven't talked." "Not really." "In days," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper against the backdrop of night, sounds filtering through the open window, the chirping of frogs, the distant cry of a night bird. "And we both know why." I swallowed, the sound loud in my own ears. Yes, we both knew. That night, the kitchen, the bourbon-fueled confession of shared loneliness under the humming fluorescent lights. Just steps apart, lost in the vacuum Alastair created. The kiss. The abrupt, guilt-ridden retreat. "This is wrong," I'd said. He'd just stood there, his chest rising and falling rapidly, staring at me. Yeah. That single, hesitant syllable. Had he meant it, or had he simply echoed the expected response? Avoidance had been our strategy, since silent meals, averted eyes. But now, here, in the intimate space of his room, the pretense felt impossible to maintain. Reese took another almost imperceptible step closer. His hands slid into the pockets of his sleep pants, a gesture that seemed like an attempt at restraint. His gaze remained fixed on mine. "I don't want to deny this, Ilara," he said, his voice a low vibration in the charged air. "And neither do you." A shiver traced its way down my spine, despite the humid heat. His words struck a resonant chord deep within me. He was right. Denial felt pointless now. This wasn't just about Alastair's betrayal. It wasn't solely about the crushing loneliness. This was about Reese. The way he saw me. The way he made me feel noticed, seen, desired, in a way Alastair hadn't in years, maybe ever. And now, as he stood so close, the air thick with unspoken things, I couldn't ignore the insistent burn low in my belly anymore. Reese slowly lifted a hand. His fingertips brushed against the bare skin of my arm. The contact was feather-light, tentative, yet it sent a jolt like static electricity through my entire body. A spark in the humid air. I looked up into his eyes. There was no question there, only a quiet certainty. He already knew the answer simmering beneath my fractured composure. And in that moment, suspended between betrayal and desire, the concepts of right and wrong blurred, faded into the oppressive Louisiana night. In that moment, all I could do was feel. Reese's eyes stayed locked on mine, the quiet confidence in them, the steady calm, acting like a strange counterpoint to the storm raging inside me, silencing it, even if just for a breath. "You can sleep here tonight," he offered, his voice low, sincere, matter-of-fact. "If you want." A simple offer, yet freighted with implications. I hesitated, a flicker of societal conditioning, of fear. Did I really want this? Alistair's absence, his blatant betrayal, the gnawing emptiness inside me, they all pulled me towards Reese. But none were the real reason. The real reason was standing inches away, his gaze holding mine captive. The real reason was Reese himself. I didn't answer verbally, but my eyes must have given him the permission he sought. He didn't press, simply turned towards the bed. He shucked off his sleep pants with economical movements, standing nude for a moment in the dim light before sliding beneath the sheet. His body was lean but powerful, etched by shadow and light. Heat bloomed on my skin, a blush that had nothing to do with the room temperature. Yet, reflexively, I wrapped my arms around myself again, as if chilled. Taking a deep breath that tasted of dust and old secrets, I moved slowly, deliberately, and sat on the edge of the wide bed. My hands rested on my knees, fingers digging slightly into the fabric of my thin nightgown. I could feel the wild, frantic pounding of my heart against my ribs. Should I lie down? Next to him? Reese lifted his head slightly from the pillow, looking at me, his expression unreadable, but not unkind. "Don't be afraid, Ilara," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Just sleep, okay?" Finally, hesitantly, I eased myself down onto the mattress beside him, lying stiffly on my back, staring up at the shadowed ceiling. A gap remained between us, a chasm of propriety and fear, but the air crackled with awareness. Reese's breathing was slow, even rhythmic beside me. Mine was a chaotic mess, my chest rising and falling too quickly. Everything I felt was amplified, overwhelming in the silence. He turned his head on the pillow, his profile sharp against the dim light filtering through the slatted shutters. His eyes found mine, filled with a warmth that seeped into my chilled soul. "He's an idiot, Ilara," he whispered, the words barely disturbing the air. "A goddamn fool. For losing someone like you." I closed my eyes, the simple validation hitting me harder than any accusation could. Reese's words were like careful hands, gently piecing together the shattered fragments of my self-worth. It wasn't just the sentiment. It was him, his presence beside me, his quiet strength. For several minutes we lay in silence, punctuated only by the symphony of the bayou night outside and the sound of our own breathing. The tension coiling inside me began to slowly, tentatively unwind. Lying next to Reese, adrift in this strange, suspended moment, I felt a flicker of peace, something I hadn't experienced in this house, perhaps ever. But that peace was a fragile thing, slowly transmuting into something else, something warmer, more urgent. Without conscious thought, my body seemed to gravitate towards his, inching closer across the cool expanse of the sheet. When the side of my foot brushed against his ankle, I froze, my breath catching. But Reese didn't pull away. Instead, subtly, deliberately, he shifted closer. His bare chest was now almost touching my shoulder. I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the clean scent of his skin mingling with the night air. I swallowed hard against the sudden dryness in my throat. My heart resumed its frantic drumming, loud enough, I feared, for him to hear. Still, I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Reese slowly lifted his hand again. His fingertips traced a feather-light path along the curve of my upper arm. His touch ignited a wildfire, spreading heat and sensation through my veins. I took a shaky, deep breath, my eyes fluttering open, drawn inexorably towards his. He was watching me. The moment our eyes locked, the pull between us became a physical force, palpable, undeniable. We froze, caught in the magnetic field of shared awareness. My intention had been simple: seek solace, find peace, escape the crushing weight of Alistair's betrayal. But this was infinitely more complex, more dangerous, more real. Rhys's gaze flickered down, briefly, to my lips. My own eyes mirrored the movement, drawn to the curve of his mouth. A second stretched, taut, and heavy. Another. Then, as if pulled by an invisible string, we moved simultaneously. The instant our lips met, the sensation that exploded inside me defied words. It felt utterly natural, terrifyingly inevitable. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, then deepened quickly, fueled by weeks, months of unspoken tension. Rhys's hand slid up, cupping my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin, igniting fires wherever it touched. My body turned instinctively towards his warmth, seeking more. The thought of stopping, of pulling back, never even surfaced. All night, we'd skirted the edge of this truth. Now, we plunged into it together. Maybe this was wrong, irrevocably, damningly wrong. But in the heat of that Louisiana night pressed against Rhys, feeling the solid reality of him, everything it made me feel was shatteringly, undeniably right. I pulled back slightly, my chest rising and falling rapidly, my lips tingling. My hand instinctively reached for my phone, still lying discarded on the bedside table. My fingers, steadier now, closed around it. I glanced at the screen. The picture was still there. Alistair. Her. His smug, oblivious smile. A fresh wave of cold anger surged through me, sharp and clarifying. My eyes flickered towards Rhys. He lay propped on one elbow, watching me, his expression intense, unreadable, a dark mirror reflecting the tumultuous emotions warring within me. But his gaze held me, pinned me, and having his eyes on me, it ignited something entirely different. A defiant heat. I took a deep, deliberate breath, tasting the humid air, the faint scent of bourbon still lingering from the kitchen encounter. No more guilt, no more shrinking. Alistair himself had severed the final thread tonight. My hands went to the thin straps of my silk nightgown. Slowly, deliberately, I slid them off my shoulders, letting the cool fabric pool around my waist. The moment my skin was bare to the lamplight, it felt like shedding a heavy shroud, like invisible chains shattering around my ankles. Rhys didn't look away. His gaze traced the lines of my body, possessive, appreciative. For a few heartbeats, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were our breathing and the distant chorus of the swamp. Then, my voice, low and husky, imbued with a newfound strength I barely recognized, broke the silence. I guess, I murmured, meeting his dark eyes. Alistair finally unlocked the chains on my ankles tonight. The change in my own voice was startling, thrilling. I'm not holding myself back anymore, Rhys. Whatever my body wants, whatever I feel, I'm going to let it happen. Rhys's breath hitched audibly. My words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication, electric with promise. We were both processing their weight, their irreversible meaning. But for me, the path ahead was suddenly blindingly clear. Slowly, with newfound grace, I moved. I climbed onto the bed, straddling his hips, my knees sinking slightly into the soft mattress on either side of his lean frame. Rhys's eyes locked onto mine, a mixture of raw hunger, surprise, and something deeper, more profound, swirling in their depths. In that instant, suspended above him, the mistress of the situation, I knew with absolute certainty, there was no turning back. And I didn't want to. All I wanted now was to feel everything. And so it began. Reese's hands found my hips, his touch firm, grounding. Mine rested on his shoulders, feeling the tension and strength beneath his skin. I looked down into his eyes, feeling something vast and overwhelming swell inside me, something that pulsed with raw, undeniable life. I closed my eyes for a moment, tilting my head back, surrendering to the heat building within me, the warmth spreading through every limb. Reese, I breathed, the name a prayer, a curse, an exclamation. Everything you're making me feel. It's so much. Thank you. You're beautiful, Ilara. Reese replied, his voice thick, strained. More beautiful than I ever let myself imagine. Our breaths came in ragged gasps now. My body contracted sharply, my legs trembling with the intensity of sensation. I had to pause, bracing my hands on his chest, trying to regain control. I looked down at Reese, wanting to articulate the storm inside me, but only his name escaped my lips, a strangled cry. Reese. My hands clenched, finding purchase on my own thighs, fingernails digging into flesh, seeking an anchor. We were both flushed, slick with sweat in the humid air. I was leading, claiming this, reveling in the power, the release. I was too consumed by sensation to control my movements, my body arching, seeking friction, completion. Below me, Reese watched, his expression a mixture of awe, fierce desire, and something akin to love. Exhaustion finally claimed me. I collapsed onto him, then rolled onto my side, my body humming, spent. Reese shifted, sitting up beside me, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips as he brushed damp strands of hair from my forehead. You okay? He asked softly. I could only nod, incapable of speech, my body still vibrating with aftershocks. He looked energized, exhilarated, his eyes bright in the dim light. My hands were tangled in the sheets, the fine linen cool against my fevered skin. Images flashed through my mind. Alistair's betrayal, the sterile tension in the kitchen days ago, the raw release just moments before. I let out an involuntary sound, a moan of mingled pleasure and emotional overload. Reese, I whispered, sensing a flicker of uncertainty in him. Don't be scared. We both wanted this. I reached out, touching his arm, encouraging him. He met my gaze, and I saw the last vestiges of hesitation dissolve, replaced by pure, unadulterated need. He relaxed, surrendering completely. He moved over me, then, his body covering mine, his movements urgent, powerful. He took deep, fast breaths, his control shattering as he let himself go completely, finding his release with a guttural groan that resonated deep within me. Afterwards, he collapsed beside me, his arm thrown protectively across my waist. Silence descended again, thick and intimate. Reese tilted his head, his eyes searching mine in the near darkness. Do you regret it? He asked, his voice low, laced with a vulnerability that surprised me. I shook my head slowly, my gaze drifting towards the high ceiling, tracing the patterns of the water stains. No, I whispered, the answer immediate, absolute. Not for a second. He continued, watching me, that faint smirk returning to his lips. That day, he murmured, in the kitchen, I knew then. His eyes held mine. I saw it. You didn't really know him then, Ilara. Not really. But I always saw him, exactly for what he is. I turned my head, meeting his gaze. He was right. It had taken Alistair's ultimate betrayal for the scales to finally fall from my eyes. But Reese had always known the rot beneath the polished surface. The pleasant weight of exhaustion settled over my body, quieting the chaos in my mind. Alistair. I started, then trailed off, sighing. A small, genuine smile touched my lips. I don't think you realize how happy I am right now. I confessed, my voice soft, even if I can't feel my legs. Reese let out a soft chuckle, the sound warm and intimate in the enclosed space. His fingers began to slowly trace patterns on the bare skin of my arm, sending fresh shivers through me. Right now, I whispered, tilting my head slightly to look at him fully. The only thing I want is to fall asleep right here, next to you. I paused, then added, the words feeling momentous, true. And from now on, I want a life where it's always you. Reese stilled for a moment, his gaze intensifying, warmth flickering in its depths. Then sleep, Ilara, he murmured, his voice a low promise. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since setting foot in Beauchain Manor, a profound sense of peace washed over me. Reese's arm tightened around my body, pulling me closer, his steady breath brushing against the back of my neck. In that moment, cocooned in the humid Louisiana night, the future was an unknown territory, shrouded in mist like the bayou at dawn. But none of it mattered. Not tonight. Tonight, this moment was ours. And until Alastair returned to his echoing mansion, every night would be. But the real reckoning, the moment I knew would irrevocably alter the landscape of all our lives, would be when Reese finally stepped out from the shadows of this old house, perhaps onto the wide, wraparound balcony overlooking the swamp, uncaring of consequences, unhesitating, and claimed what, in the crucible of betrayal and desire, was already undeniably his. Follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications for. Your comments fuel this journey. Thank you for being here.